All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As usual, we're going to talk about product advancements and things that we have been working on. Um, so let's start. Um, Always trying to get you updated with what we're working on, and trying to help you understand bit better about the product and about the platform and the things that we're doing. Um, if you have any questions, as always, you should have a chat button somewhere across your toolbar. So use that if you have any questions. As always, if we don't get a chance to address them during this webinar, usually we run it pretty tight to 30 minutes. We'll follow up on a separate email and we'll answer your questions separately. Couple things that you guys asked last time, and then as always, address them before we go with the rest. Um, some of you are going to experience higher volumes in the weeks to come because either you're launching a new service or because it's just simply seasonality and people expect to have more clients or you have programs. In general, the Identity Mind platform scales horizontally, so it shouldn't be a problem for you to do that. However, if you do want us to keep an eye on it, if you do want us to make sure that that everything is running smoothly, please contact your CSM and let them know that you are expecting a higher than expected volume in a particular season. And then we'll keep an eye on it as well to make sure that there's nothing wrong with the configuration or there's nothing that would cause major headaches then for you for the matter review. Second thing you asked, you are aware that we release pretty much on a weekly basis. We do have larger releases every 4 weeks or so, but in general, we do have small releases on a weekly basis. It's sort of a continuous delivery model where we release constantly. Um, we are going to continue to do that. We in general we don't experience any issues with that methodology, and we focus really on things that have to do with things that you're waiting for and you're asking for. If there is anything in particular again that you are concerned about or any changes that we're making that you may think that may harm what you're doing, let us know. We do not do anything that is not backward compatible. So everything that we do, we make sure that we take care of whatever your current integration is. So it shouldn't be a problem. But if you do experience anything different, please do not hesitate to contact customer support and let us know, and we'll be happy to take a look at it individually. All right. So as usual, we spend some time working on covering the latest stuff. We are going to spend some time talking a little bit about what the orchestration hub you may be reading in the literature in the internet about collaboration hubs or orchestration hubs. They're pretty much the same thing actually. In this is something that the platform does well. And so we want to cover a little bit. Most of it, you've been using it probably already under the KYC side or under identity verification. But if you are listening to or reading the articles in the internet or by providers or by analysts like Gartner and IT Group, they have this sort of language that they are using as to the capability of platforms to do to put together a bunch of services that have to do with identity verification or KYC. We'll work a little bit on the demo, and we'll cover what is coming next. All right. So let's start with, again, a lot of, I think I've said this almost in every webinar, but as you know, a lot of our focus has been on the workflows and how to make sure that you have the ability to do better workflows. One of the things that was a limitation on the transaction on the application summary page was the ability to understand the stages as which you're running your applications and where those were. So one of the things that we added was the ability now to do reporting on which stages you are, which stages your applications are at. So if you're using stages for your KYC process or for your identity verification process, then this filtering is going to be very helpful. We had a couple clients that their main workflows as to how to deal with the different states of where those applications are, depending largely on what stages those are. So if you just to refresh your memory a little bit about stages, when you're doing an onboarding application or a KYC application, and you want to gate certain tests and certain functionality in different steps of the onboarding process, you can achieve that in our platform through stages. So if, for example, you have a junior level type of product for some of your clients, and that junior level allows them to transact, I don't know, $1,000 a day versus $10,000 a day, for example, then you could use the stages to actually gate of how much of the identity verification aspects you do, and that's the use of it. So that the ability now to create workflow based on those stages from the user interface perspective then makes sense if you're using those stages. You can get them today available through the API, and in the UI actually there's a little piece of that already dropped into the user interface, but there's more coming to the user interface that is going to allow you to do this. SARs. Well, so recently we did have a product council with some of our clients, and it was clear that SARs continues to be one of the areas where we will continue to put resources on. The SAR filing has improved greatly and will continue to improve over the next 2 or 3 months. Until we get it completely done as for FinCEN. Most of you that are using the capabilities in the system for SAR filing, we have sort of sorted out the details of those for your particular operations. So if this is a functionality you have not started using yet, then make sure that you connect with your CSMs and make sure that we can do a proper testing of the process. So there, as I said, there are several of our clients that are using fully this feature to remit all of to file all the SARs directly to FinCEN, and it's working great. But there's still work to be done in there, and this particular release has a lot of work that has been going into the SAR forms and the validations in particular, such that when you are entering fields that are particular to your operations and applications, then the forms are going to give you feedback as you're going through the process, whether there is something that you need to do differently or some information that is missing and so forth. So the SARs are available, as you probably know by now, off the cases. So once you create a case of an alert or of an application or of a transaction, whatever your reason to create a case is, even with external data, then you can take that case and then file a SAR associated with it. All right. Let's see. Next. A lot of information, and we have gotten, historically questions about, reputation and the things that how a particular reputation comes to bear when you're looking at a transaction, and what is the reputation of those users and the entities that make those users. One of the things that when we migrated from the first user, the user interface 1 to user interface 2, one of the things that we sort of still figuring out is what is the best way to actually make our clients understand what makes a reputation and why is the reason for that. One of the basic features then that we had then in the previous interface was the ability to understand the reputation of those entities at the time of the transaction. And in the current graph score and in the current graph metrics widget, you can get the reputation, but you couldn't get the reputation at the time of transaction. You can get the reputation as is at the moment of the analysis. So we added what I would call a temporary solution to that on the transaction detail pane, which is when you go to the transaction page. We call that transaction summary table. When you click on a transaction, the right-hand panel, which has all those details, then will contain the reputation of the entities at the time of the transaction. In addition to that, that right-hand panel is actually highly customizable. And you can add fields and you can delete fields. The idea of the right-hand panel is really about how you can quickly decide transactions based on the information that is on the right-hand panel. That's the intent of it. Such that if you don't have to actually go deeper into the analysis of those transactions, you can make those decisions immediately right there, very quickly. This structure of the user interface working very well for many of you. But for those of you that need more information, obviously you also can go into the investigate level, which is the dashboard level of it. But in this release, then we're giving you more capabilities for customization of the right-hand panel, and then we're including in it the reputation of the entities associated to the transaction, so that you have quick access to the reputation at the moment of the transaction. All right. Next, so let's talk a little bit about, like, as I said before, things that you may be hearing in the market about the orchestration hub or the corroboration hub. The idea really is something that at least the Antimine platform has had for a long time, which is how do you bring together different sources of data, different sources of information, and how you use those in a way that enables you to build the right process for identity verification. And KYC in I would say 70% of our clients use us for KYC. It's very close to that, right? So the difference sometimes is that if you're not bounded by regulatory, by BSA, or you may use a different language than KYC, but at the end of the day, the idea of the corroboration hub, the idea of the orchestration hub, is how you take and put together different sources of information, of technology, and how you create a workflow that is adequate to the process of verification of identity. So the way that we have implemented this is we call it third-party ecosystem. We have, between technology and data, we have about 30 different partners that you can plug into this. And we are always adding new partners. So as you know, recently, for example, we brought in a secondary document verification technology. Upcoming is the device, an alternative to the device fingerprint technology that we've been using. So anyway, so all of those, you can actually create then a flow with that and the stages, right, in which then you can say, okay, I want to do this, then I want to do that, and so forth. So that's really the concept of the orchestration hub. One of the things that we have done that I do think is different than other providers that have also third-party data coming into the platform is that we've actually normalized the output of those third parties, and then we have been able to take that information and embed it into the concept of the identity itself. That means, for example, things like if you've done already KYC on a user, if you've already done name matters validation, you don't have to do it again. You can rely on the results of that name matters validation if you've done it before. The platform also understands whether you have done a particular check with a period of time, so we don't have to reach out to that third party again. The other thing we have done is we have built abstraction layers on top of it. For example, with document verification, where we have, again, multiple providers of documents, the platform understands what is the best provider for you for a particular document for a particular region. So that there is a routing algorithm in the backend that can help you select automatically which provider would provide the best solution for you for a particular region or for a particular type of document. Those capabilities, the idea is that we could swap in or out different providers of data such that that doesn't change for you. So you keep using your same DB security tests and so forth, regardless of which one is the provider that is providing those in the backend. So we have taken the work, if you will, to take those providers, takes their outputs, and then just normalize them such that if you have to switch providers for whatever reason, right, or we have to switch provider for whatever reason, your integration and your rules and everything that you've created doesn't depend on the details of that. Not every third-party provider that we have is under an abstraction layer. Some of them are, some of them aren't. So some of them you will still have to be used by name, if you will. There are specific exceptions, for example, when you're doing, say, data verification in Canada and you need to do dual source, you need to use a specific provider for that. And then the abstraction from the regulatory perspective doesn't allow you. Basically, it's because you need to know who was the provider and so forth, the source of data and stuff. So the idea, again, is that the idea of why we are a little bit different than the rest when it comes to this is that we actually have created a normalization layer that allows us to swap providers if we need to, without for you needing to change all of those. For those areas where we have not yet provided an abstraction, we will do that, and we're moving all our providers under that model. The other thing that the layer provides you in terms of the orchestration is where you introduce your manual steps. So if you have to do a specific manual analysis, say, sanctions, for example, comes to mind, and then that requires manual intervention, and then you can move them back into an automated process. The system allows you to do that through the combination of the tag framework and the stages framework. Then you can actually interject manual processes in your overall onboarding process, and then use the tags to continue then the automated flow of the transaction once you've reached a specific manual point. All right, so I think I talked about almost all of this. Again, the third-party ecosystem, very important. That's where you get all the people that are involved and all the different providers. That's both abstraction layer and the orchestration layer. We talk about it, and keeping the results such that that at the end of the day you end up with an actual decision. So through the rule system that it is, once you've gone through the stages, once you've gone through the process, the actual platform is going to tell you at the end, accept, denied, or maybe you need to do some manual review, right? So this process in general, for all our clients who are using us for onboarding or KYC or identity proofing, it's automated about 95%. So that's the average across all our clients. We have clients that are at 80%, we have clients that are at 99%, but in average across our client base, we talk about an automation about 95%. So that's actually pretty high. So it works well if you're able to get all the processes and design in place. All right, the benefits are pretty obvious. I would think the ability to access everything through the same platform. You can make different use cases. Again, identity proofing, identity risk, KYC, onboarding. All of those fit onto this concept, and really use one API. I mean, you send information. It's all the same information, and we leverage all that information, the data, and we manage all the vendor stuff. So from the ROI perspective, the fact that you only have to do with one vendor is obviously great. a lot of those technology or data providers that we have, if you go independently, for example, they would ask you to have a minimum requirements with them in terms of volume. All of that is we are taking care of it on the back end. So taking advantage of a single platform where you have all the services actually has a interesting ROI when it comes to that. All right, I'm going to switch it over to Faisal for a quick demo of the things that we talked about, and then we'll be back for the rest. So, Faisal.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you for the great overview. Let me go and share my screen. The first new items which we covered was enhancements to the workflow on the applications page. So especially for the clients who are utilizing the stages, now they have an option to not only see how many stages a user has went through, but they have the option to filter based on the last stage. So if their workflow is different team members are reviewing applications based on a stage and stages tied to a different level of due diligence, then you can create filters based on the last stage and make sure that the appropriate team is reviewing those applications. In addition to that, we also add workflow related items to applications, especially on the priority and progress of it. So now you can assign a priority to an application, or you can assign a progress so that one has an insight as to how the review process is going. And currently those are accessible through, if you want to update, so you can change the priority. These are configurable. Let us know, and the team can change based on the wording which you use internally within your teams. And same thing with the progress, where you have new, in progress, and closed. And if you have additional statuses in the middle for your own workflow, those can be configured from within the platform. Now going on to the enhancements which we made on the transactions page. So as Jose was mentioning, the right-hand side, which is the summary view, it is very configurable. So let me see if I can find an example over here. So it's for call in this scenario. So this is where there was a lot of questions around, okay, the trusted reputation, if we can provide additional insights as to which entities were involved in converting this to trusted. Now you have an insight available over here where it was because of the reputation of account, the identity was trusted. And then on top of that, we are focused on customizing this summary view, the right-hand side. So within this customization, currently you have the ability to basically add, remove data fields. So if you want to change the order, add additional information set, then you can go ahead and then add that. And then upon refresh, every single time, that is the view which will be displayed to the analyst. Then going on to the SAR validations. So if you go to cases, you come over here, select a case, and then you have the ability to, if a SAR form has not been created earlier, then it would give the option to create a SAR. If not, then you would have the edit SAR capability, then you click on it. So this is where we are working, a lot of validations which are being added so that as when you move through the process, it will give you additional insights, additional markers, so that you have inline errors which can be resolved and which can be fixed. Basically to reduce the errors which you would get back post submission. So all the errors and a lot of guidance which is provided as part of filling out the SAR form is going to be available here. So quick view into the orchestration layer, which Jose was mentioning, and most of you are already using it. but just to give you a quick view into how that looks. So there's two elements to it. One is how do you enable? So within my environment, the demo environment, I have these third parties enabled. So it's as easy as turning them on or off based on the service which you plan to use. Once these are turned on, then you can go to the decision engine. So in this case, these rule sets. This is where you can use. So in case of a document verification, you can enable multiple providers behind the scenes. And there's one layer on top which does the verification or which does the validation, and you can use as part of your rule set. So so hopefully that provides you additional insights, not only that you can use multiple providers within the one rule set, within one profiles, but you can also decision on them. And then at any point in future, based on additional review, if you want to trigger any of these third parties from the user interface, you have the ability to do them by adding additional widgets to the review process and to the platform. So hopefully it gives you a good overview of the latest enhancements which are available in the platform. And if you have any additional questions regarding these, please reach out to your CSMs, and they should be able to help you further. Back to you, Jose.
Thank you. Let me just put back the slide deck. All righty. So what is coming? What is next? Well, we'll continue to work on SARS. As I said before, we still have probably a couple more release cycles where to do the whole validations for every type of businesses that that we have. As I said before, if you are looking to start using SARS, please contact your CSM. We will prioritize the aspects of the SARS that that are applicable to you. But in general, we should have a full complete support for every use case by a couple more releases. Queue management for applications, as you know, queue management is still on the cases today. We are finalizing that for the applications, such that if you are using it on the KYCs, those can be routed directly to the specific queues. One of the things that I'm the most excited about, and the reason why I'm super excited about it, is because I've been asking for this feature for 5 years, which is how do we get a better fraud rule tuning report? And it's still not everything I have asked for in the last 5 years, but it's coming. So I am super excited about it. And I'm also excited. We have talked about this new device fingerprint provider before. We do really think that it's coming before the end of the year, and that would be great. I mean, we lost with the current provider. We lost the capabilities to do native app device fingerprint, and I know that some of you have been asking for that again. So we're very excited to have this partnership with Innovation and get that done before the end of the year. All righty, so we are at 10:30. We had a few questions on the chat, so we'll respond to those by email. One that I just wanted to address very quickly, we did have a question about when are we working. We're going to be working with FinTrack instead to file STRs. Is scheduled in the roadmap for Q2 next year. So we're hoping that it's going to be before the half year. I wanted to address that because we have been actually getting a lot of requests for FinTrack and STR lately. So the rest, we'll do our best effort to get those answered by email separately, and we'll address them probably also at the beginning of next webinar. Thank you very much. Have a great day, and thank you for joining.